Hello everyone, I'd like to welcome you to our webinar. I'm Michael and Trevor Toll, the Marketing Manager for Solution Systems Inc. Today we have customers and others attending this webinar, so just a bit about Solution Systems before we begin. We are located in Rolling Meadows, Illinois, and we have been in business for 35 years providing software, IT infrastructure, and web development to organizations in the Chicagoland area, as well as Wisconsin, Indiana, and the Midwest region. We are a Gold Certified Microsoft partner. We sell, implement, and support an ERP software called Microsoft Dynamics NAV. NAV is a business accounting software that is geared toward manufacturers, distributors, and service companies. We also sell, implement, and support CRM as well as outsource IT services to our customers. Today we are very fortunate to have Rick Baxter with us from Cost Control Software, and he will be conducting this overview. So I'm going to pass it over to him so we can get started with that.
Okay, the recorder has started. Again, hello and welcome to everyone. This is Rick Baxter, Cost Control Software. Today is Wednesday, June the 18th. You may be watching this live or watching this on the replay. We are going to be showing today how to add quality control to your Microsoft Dynamics NAV software. I purposely did not put a version up there. I'm thinking some of you might be on 2009 or 2013 or 2013 R2. We have the quality control available in multiple versions, obviously the most current version as well as past versions. This is an add-on product, so you might as well know that right up front, and I'm going to take you through some of the features. So it's because it's an add-on, because it's certified for Microsoft Dynamics, it's very easy to add this to your software. My mission today is really kind of get you comfortable with the software and how it works. So I'm going to scroll down on the study guide to page 2, and we're going to kind of look at some of the what I call key attributes, 7 key attributes to a useful quality control system, because it has to be useful. It's got to serve a purpose, or there's no point doing it. There's no point buying it or adding it to your NAV software if it doesn't have a good purpose for using it. So let's kind of take you through some of the attributes. That's on page 2, and then on page 3, once I get through this, I'll take you through the daily workflow as far as how you would actually use the software on a day-to-day basis. First key attribute, real-time. Software's got to be real-time to be useful, right? So for the data to be useful, it must show in real time, and I'll take you in and show you a quick example. So I'm going to park this study guide out of the way, and let's take you into quality control. Now I have positioned quality control right here on my screen. I just click it here. By the way, your role, I'm using, just so you know, I'm using the 2013 R2 release, the most current release. You may have a slightly different version, but the basics, the essence of what you're going to see works the same in all the versions. So when we talk about real time, I'm going to click on this choice right here called Lot Serial Number Testing. This is a list of the various tests that are being performed. And so they're either performed or they are in different statuses of being performed. Let's take one here that's this one's in process. So let's take a look at this test. In fact, I'll widen that column out a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to edit that test, and I want you to get the concept of real time. So, and again, because I'm kind of experimenting with a new monitor, I'm a little bit, the screen sizes are a little strange. Okay. So here is a test. So in fact, this software is all about testing. You got to understand that's the purpose of a quality control system, is you perform a test on a product, whether it's my sample, it's a cable. In your business, you'll be testing probably something other than a cable, but you'll have certain things that you test. We call those our quality measures. You see them down here. And then you have conditions that they're tested under, and you have methods. You have a variety of the upper and lower limits of the test itself, and then the actual measures. So in this column is the actual test results. In this case, the length came out to be 6.3, and that is an acceptable limit because it can be anywhere from 6.0 to 6.5, and it's currently set at 6.3. As far as the appearance, if that's in the results list, and you can see we have a list of potential different, conditions: perfect, slight bend, bent, things like that. And you build, of course, your own list, and you build your own specifications here, and as far as what you want to test. But it is real time. So anytime you open up a test, especially one that's in process, you can see the results that the tester, whoever's recording the test results, is entering. It's pretty straightforward. So that's pretty much the first concept here, is that I just think it's real critical that the data must be shown in real time, and that's what you were seeing there on the test page results. Setting up specifications, number 2, very important part of a quality control system, that each item that is to be tested must have its own set of testing instructions. Okay, so an item is going to have some specifications as to what it is that you're going to test. So think in terms of your own business as far as what you might be testing, that you would have some conditions or some measurements that you want to be testing for, and you'll want to establish those up front. We have enhanced the software to allow for customer specifications. So you can have just basic in-house item specs, or you can actually take it a step further and have customer specific specifications, which might be for one customer is slightly different than another customer, and so we do allow you to accommodate that requirement. And we have version control on the specs as well. I think you'll see that this is similar to version control in bills of material. So if you've done anything with bills of material or router, let's just go there now. And I'm going to come up here to our specification area. I'm still in the quality control. These are the choices within quality control. And the first one is specifications, because quite frankly, that's what you've got to do first. You've got to set up the specifications when you're going to test some item, whether it's a computer, a monitor, a webcam, a cable, whatever it might be. You will want to have some sort of specifications for that item. So let's just, I just pick one here. This one's certified, but you'll get the idea. I'm just going to go in and edit this one. And let's get this a little wider on your screen. There we go. I think I'll come up just a little bit here. Okay, so this is for this item number 80216-T. It is an Ethernet cable in my sample. Yours is probably some other item that you're testing. And these are the specification lines. Now do notice that this is currently certified. There are just several. It's either new, it's certified, it's under development, or it's closed. So this particular one happens to be status of certified. And then these are the tests. This is the master. This is what you set up. And I bet many of you that have some sort of quality control system in place now probably already have a book or a 3-ring binder or something where you're keeping probably a hard copy of all the tests and this upper and lower limit that is acceptable ranges for you for each test that you perform. Now in this example, I test for appearance, I test for density, I test for length, clarity, and let's see if we test for anything. Oh yeah, hardness and speed. So this has 3, 4, 5, 6, about 6 or 7 things that we test for when we are testing this particular item. It's a cable. And there's other things. There's methods to the test, and that could be a machine that you might run it on, or maybe it's just a visual inspection. You set that up ahead of time right in here. You can set up conditions, like whenever I do a density test, it's got to be greater than 32 degrees when I test it, so you can actually build a condition that that test has to be run in. You can set up the testing unit of measure, which might be different than the, that is the testing unit of measure, and that's the description of it. The results list are either numeric or it's a list. So if it's a list, then you just, it's like what you saw previously. And if it's numeric, it is the upper and lower limits and then a normal value. In other words, the acceptable value. You can also set tests to be, I'll just show a couple of little goodies we've got in here. Mandatory, whether that test is a mandatory test or not. Some of them you may not want to test every single time. And you'll see that when we create a new test, how it pulls in just the tests that are mandatory, and unless you select all, and then it brings them all in. Last date tested. So this is the last date that this item was tested. So you can see it's been several months since this particular item has been tested. You can also set these tests up to be outside testing. So some of the tests you may have to send to an outside laboratory rather than doing it yourself. And to flag that, you just click it, and that indicates that it is an outside test. Display it, of course, and then comments. Now, one thing about comments, we did feel it was important as your, I knew I was going to get in trouble there. It was certified, so I couldn't change that number. Okay, so one of the things that you might want to do, in fact, let me just put this temporarily under development so we have a little more access here. That you'll probably want to put some comments, and you can have comments about the line item. So for this measurement, you can actually have a very specific comment about the line itself here, or you could have a comment associated with the overall test itself, and that's up here. So that's a header, kind of a header comment versus the line item comments themselves. All of this, of course, about just the setting up the specifications for this inventory, for this, before you actually do the test. Okay, so I think you get the idea on that. Let's go back to the study guide. I want to keep moving along. Number 3 here, as far as key attribute, is lot or serial number. I contend that it's real important to test a lot or serial numbered item. Otherwise, how do you know what item you tested? So you really want to try to use, although it's not required. I've had people say, well, is that required? And the answer is no, it's not. But it is helpful so that when you do perform a test, you're specifying the exact lot number or the exact serial number that you're testing so that you have some traceability after that test has been done. So definitely want that lot or serial number. Did you see that? That's back here when you do the test. So let's just pull these up. And let me just edit this test. That's not the one I want. Here we go. So right here. So lot number, serial number. This is the lot that I'm testing when I run this cable. So you're specifying now this screen, understand they kind of look the same, don't they? Where it's got the descriptions down here and it's got the header, but this is the actual test area, QCT, Quality Control Test number 004. So this is my test number 4. They're all numbered, so that's like almost a unique identifier to each test that's performed, but I think it's important to indicate the serial number or lot number that you are testing at the time that you perform the test. Okay. So number 4, identify the tester. So it does make sense to know who performed the test. So at the time that you are entering a test, there is a place, just show this to you briefly here. So when you're entering the test and so forth, now this is certified, but you'll see a column. I don't know if anybody's put anything in here, but way out here, there's a column for tested by. And I kind of just put that in there because I think it's important to signify who specifically in the company performed the test, especially when you get into, we'll get into some of the reporting requirements that often laboratories have for recording the test results and who specifically performed the test. So it's important to document that and maybe even utilize the NAV reason codes to specify some reason maybe a test was out of conformance, and be able to put in some information there, or even a comment as to why a test didn't pass. Okay. So let's go back here. Okay, so that's number 4. Number 5 in my list of important things for attributes is a certificate of analysis. Many of you that are performing some type of laboratory testing need to produce some sort of document that certifies that you have actually done the test and that it is in compliance with the specifications. So you need to be able to print that at the completion of the test, and then also maybe even at the time of a shipment. You might want to be able to reprint it and include that C of A, they call it a C of A, include that with the shipment document. Let's just take a quick peek at that report. So I'm going to move this out of the way again. So here's, this is my listing of tests, and we'll just use this 4 that I was on here. And the certificate of analysis is right on the menu. There's several things up here. We'll talk about all these. I'll get to all these things today. So we'll go to the certificate of analysis, and it's for this test number 4, and I'll just preview it so that you can see it on screen, give you an idea of what our C of A looks like. Now these are all created with the standard NAV reporting tool, so that you can get in here easily and make any modifications that you want. Let me zoom in a little bit, make it bigger for you here. So here's our C of A. It's going to have the item number, the description, the lot number that was being tested, the start date. Potentially it's going to have who was tested by, certified, the test number, and then any version. So we do have specific versions, and then down in the lower part is what was tested. In this case, 3 items: appearance, density, and length were each tested. This is the what we were expecting and the normal results, and then these are the actual test values for each of those tests. And then the other thing that I think is fairly important here, let's just zoom out a little bit, is down here on the bottom. Many of you have a place where your quality supervisor signs off on the test. So you actually get a signature or some initials and a date that the supervisor has signed the documentation to kind of certify that this test was performed on this date, on this amount, that kind of thing. So most of you probably are familiar with the C of A, or some kind of documentation that certifies that the test was performed and meets the conditions, versus being in non-conformance, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Okay, so that is the concept here, number 5, called C of A, Certificate of Analysis. Okay, number 6. This is going to be a little tricky for me to explain, but I'll do my best here. The concept here is who controls what is picked. So when you are doing true certifications and you certify an item, especially for a specific customer, then the person that is doing the picking has to pick based on the lots that the service department says to go pick, instead of the pickers kind of just writing down on the picking sheet, here's the lot numbers I got. It's the other way around. So typically it's reversed, that the shipping department specifies the lot number that meets the customer's specification. So it goes the other way around. And now the people that actually do the picking don't always like that, because they've got to go out and they've got to literally find a specific lot number. That's the problem, that, you know, they've got this situation where, especially if it's on a large roll or something in the back, they got to dig through and move other products to get to a lot number that matches potentially the customer's specifications. And let me see if I'll show you a little bit about that. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but because it doesn't apply to everybody, but some of you, I think it might. So I'm going to open up a list of sales orders, and notice I have sales orders right in my quality control menu. I just wanted it simple to get to the sales orders themselves. And let's see if I have one that I want to use here. This isn't the one I was thinking. Okay, so we're going to just go into this order here. Let's come up on my other screen. Well, this might work. Okay, so here is the sales order for one cable. All right, now that Ethernet cable, that is a lot tracked item, which is also very important here. In other words, this is really wrapped around item tracking. So you want to be sure you absolutely have your item tracking up and running. Because when you go to the lines and come into tracking, item tracking lines, this is where you actually go in and specify the lot number that you are pulling or want to pull onto that sales order. So I'm going to go just a step further here and see if I can go. Yeah, look. Okay, good. So here's some additional information. So we've added a special screen here called the lot number list screen, which lets me see, and I'll widen these out, item specs exist. And so there are specs for this one for a customer, and a testing has occurred, and there's customer specific specs. And let's see if there's any customer test exists. Item test non-conformance. Now this would be a problem here. If this item was in non-conformance, then you may not want to ship that particular item. But here there's no problem. This would light up if the test that was performed was not in compliance. Okay, so you get this little extra information screen here related to this particular lot number, specific for several statuses back within your quality control granule. So this was a little something we added in for the people that need to specify the actual lot number that is being shipped, and to be sure that that lot number has been tested and certified. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that briefly here. Okay, so hopefully you're catching on to what we're doing. And let's go down to the last one here, 7, then I'm going to do a quick poll, is reporting. And everybody says, what kind of reports do you include with your quality control? Well, I'm going to show you some reports, and then at the end I'm going to show you some charting, because I think charting is real important as well with quality control. But there are several built-in reports. One I've shown you already, which is that certificate of analysis. So when you're on the testing area here, you can print that C of A report. But there are some other useful, very useful reports. And the other one that I think is used a lot is this testing worksheet. So just think in terms of your own laboratory, where you have to go and do a test. Maybe you're the tester. Put on the hat that you're the guy that goes out and actually does the test. Well, you want to put on a clipboard some kind of report that you can go and write down the results on. So here's appearance, density, and length, and there's what's being expected. And then there's a blanks for the actual measures or to indicate that it's non-conformance in here. So this is where you would fill in the results and the date tested and tested by. So this is just a document that just goes on a clipboard, and then you go and perform the test. Again, don't overthink what quality control is about. It's about testing. That's it. It is testing and recording test results and then being able to analyze those test results. So that's the whole process here with a quality control system. Okay, so the C of A, the testing worksheet, the test results. So you have test results sorted two ways. So you can see it by lot number. So this particular report lets me see by each of the, let's see if I got the lot number showing here. Yeah, so here's the different lot numbers and each test that is performed. So this lets me kind of see it by lot number. And notice too, see, I've got lot number here and then the same lot number. Well, you can actually perform multiple tests on the same lot, because a lot number, you may have 10,000 of a certain lot, and it sits in inventory for a while, and then you need to go back and you need to test it a little bit later on. So you can perform multiple tests on the same lot number, and each test, of course, will have its own test date assigned to it, maybe a different tester, and maybe different things that were, well, probably the same thing as tested, but it would probably have a different date to it. So this is the report showing by the test results by lot number, and the other one is by item number. So here is the similar report. We'll preview this. So this shows for each item. So this 8004 item, these are the tests that were performed. Here's item 101080102-T. These are the various tests that were performed and the results over here. And then here's the, it looks like this was tested a lot, this cable. Look at all the different tests that were performed, and the test results are all going to be listed on this report. So you have a nice history, chronological history of all the tests that have been performed, either by item or by the lot number that was tested. Okay. That's it on. Okay, so before I jump over to to the next page, page 3, let's do a quick poll, and I want to be sure, first of all, that you can follow this okay. So is what I'm showing looking easy, looking hard, too complicated, or am I explaining how this works in a fairly logical sequence? So I want to be sure that those of you on the call live, just type in, yeah, I'm following along. Say, this looks easy to use. Type in, this looks very complicated, Rick. You know, just kind of let me know what your impressions are of what you've seen so far. Take just a minute. We need a little audience participation. Jackie says good, looks good, thank you. Alan says okay, but some questions for later. And we will have a Q&A at the end, Alan, so hang in there for that. Write it down so you don't forget, or just type it in now and I'll come back to it. Jerry says very understandable. Alex says I'm a little confused about the whole process. And I think in the next section, Alex, I'm going to go through workflow, and that hopefully will clear it up. And looks good. Okay, so everybody seems to be feeling like we're okay on this part. All right. So, and this will tie nicely about Alex's question about the process, because it's not just these different screens, it's what do I do and what order do I do it in. I want to be sure that you're comfortable with the, I guess I would call the daily workflow or the process to run this. And there's only really five basic parts to this thing. So it's not overly complex software. And the first one is you've got to receive the item into inventory to be tested. In other words, it's got to be there. You can't test something that doesn't exist. So, and there's two ways to get something into your on-hand inventory. One is through a purchase order. So many of you might receive in an item from a vendor, and you actually want to test that item before you start using it. And so we allow for testing of the incoming raw materials right from the get-go before you actually start using them in production or selling them, even worse, selling them direct to your customers. So if you're a distribution business and you want to test those incoming items before you ship them to your customers, then you can perform some quality tests and record those test results. So that would be the first method from a purchase order. And then the second is from a production order. For those of you that are into manufacturing, you might get items into your inventory, because we're talking about receiving the items in. So you're going to receive it because you produce it. So when you produce that finished good, it's going to put it into inventory, and then you perform a test. Now, I know one question that comes up a lot, so I'll just state it here quickly before we forget it. People ask me about what I would call inline testing, that during the manufacturing process, as it goes from operation 10 to operation 20 to operation 30 to operation 40, can I test at each one of those operational steps? And I'm sorry to announce, no, the software does not do that. I've had some resellers actually modify the software to accommodate that for some of their end users. So I know it's possible to do. We have just not done that here. We've not had a big enough demand for that. So it's just these two types, that you're receiving it in through a purchase order and it needs to be tested, or you're producing it with a production order and it needs to be tested. One other little comment before we go and look at this is the location code. We do support location codes. In fact, I put the word here, encouraged. You're encouraged to use location codes so that at the time that you produce an item or receive an item, potentially you'll put it into a location that is like a quality control location. Maybe it's, sometimes people refer to it as a quarantine location, that you're not really wanting to use that item until the test has been performed, use or ship that item until the tests have been performed. So let me just take a quick peek at that. So and what I'm really referring to on the POs, and notice I have on the POs and sales orders and production orders, I put them all here just as a convenience factor right on the menu. You don't have to. You can always use your customization and take those back off if you don't want those on there. And I've added location. And the reason I want to point location out is because I've added a QC location. That means that at the time that you receive in your purchase order, you may want to receive your inventory or some of your inventory items to a quality control location. That way you know that that item's not in your main warehouse. It's not in the blue warehouse or the green warehouse. It's not in the, the main distribution process. It's in quality control, and until it's been tested and then transferred out of the the QC location into the appropriate usable location, it's basically not available. So you analyze your availability of inventory by location, and then you'll see what items are currently in the QC location. Make sense? Okay, so on a purchase order, I'm just going to click on over here on purchase orders. And I think I'll just open up this first one to give you an idea of what we're talking about here. So when you are entering your purchase order, this one's open. Good, so I can make a change. So here's an item, and I can actually change the location code from blue. What you might do is put in QC location. So when you receive in this item, you actually receive it into the quality control location, okay, through the normal NAV receiving process. Now, I'm not going to go through that. I will make one other little notation here as well on screen, is there's this new column on your purchase order. See, I'm on purchase orders. So this is purchase order to Coolwood Technologies. This is the vendor. These are the line items down here that are being purchased. There's a column called QC required. That will pop up automatically if you have specifications I showed that to you at the beginning. If you have specs already required to which means that you've got to test this item. So if an item has to be tested, this QC required is going to show up. And then I would definitely want to record that and receive it into my QC location, do the test, and then after the test is done, transfer it to the appropriate warehouse. And I don't know if you noticed this. I'm sure you didn't. So right here within the test itself, if I go, I think it's here. If I go edit the test, yeah. So after the test is complete, you can get immediately to your transfers. So this would allow you to set up a new transfer to move items from, let's say, the QC location to the yellow location or to wherever it needs to go. This was released, so I can't make a change there. So that's basically how you would transfer your inventory out of the testing location once it's been approved into the appropriate warehouse. Some people may say, well, what do I do if an item doesn't pass? And I'll show you that here in a minute because we haven't done a test yet. So if an item doesn't pass, it fails, then I don't know what happens. Do you return? If it's an incoming raw material, you might want to return that to the vendor. So you might have a location that is a return to vendor location so that you know that those items are due to be sent back to that vendor. Okay. All right, so let's go back to our workflow, make sure we're in sync here. So that's the key here. And then the other part, and we did take a look at this earlier, is that you have to set up your specifications. Okay, we'll do a test here in just a minute. But you've got to set up your specifications as far as what you test. So back in the quality control, I'm in quality control. That's this choice right here. So this is a little bit of training. You get the idea here. So you'll set up your specifications, and your specs are basically what's going to be tested. The appearance, the density, the length, clarity, and you'll set all these up. Okay, so you'll set up whatever it is that you test. This is all user definable. When you install the software, this list comes in blank. There's nothing there. So one of the first things you'll want to do is set up the new measures, the quality measures that you're going to actually do testing on. Okay, so that's kind of, in fact, I don't know, I put this step, I was looking at this earlier, set up the specifications. In fact, that almost should be probably number one. That's probably the first thing that you do. I might change that for the next class, is that you really should probably set up your specs first and then you receive it into inventory. Okay, and that's how it knows that it's there and will be needed. Now I'm going to have to pause a second and take a drink of water. Thank you. Okay, so after you've basically received it into inventory, and I say received, it could be raw material, it could be production from a finished good. At that stage, we're ready to perform the test and record the test results. So I want to do one for you just so you get an idea of what an actual test looks like. So we're going to, I didn't practice this ahead of time, but we're going to actually see if this goes okay. So these are some of the tests that are already in there. You can see I've done this cable, so I'll probably just do that item again. So I'm going to, in fact, I'm just going to highlight that. I'm going to do a test of an Ethernet cable. So to do a new test, here's the steps. Guess what? You type new. Pretty straightforward. You press enter to assign the next number. So I'm on test number 23. I put in the item that I'm testing, and in this case I'm just going to use that cable as an example. Okay, so I put in the cable. Oops, too far. You could, if the customer number would come in if this was a customer specific test. It's not in this case. We're just doing our own in-house test. And so now what I need to do is to get the specifications. So I say get specifications, and it says, do you want to get all specifications or just the specifications that are mandatory? Remember I showed you that mandatory field back on the specifications themselves. So if you say yes, then that's going to get all the specifications. If you say no, then you're only getting the test lines that are flagged as mandatory to be tested. I'm just going to say yes for interest, and has not been certified. Okay, so what do we got here? Let's do this one more time. All right, I think I got a blank customer in there. So I'm going to delete this test and start again. I miskeyed it. So, okay, so I'm going to start a new test. Press enter, select the part number. That's it. And now I'll get the specifications. Calling has not been certified. Oh, I changed it, didn't I? Okay, so let's go back. So it actually, if I just read the directions, it would have told me. So back here on this test, remember I changed it to under, oops. So I put it back under development because I wanted to show you that change. Let's just make this certified, and now we should be okay. So I'm going to come back into my test, and let's just pull it back up. Number 24, I'll go into edit mode. So here's the test, and I'll try one more time to get the specifications, and we'll say all, and guess what? It actually works. Okay, so that's because it wasn't certified, so that's working fine. Okay, so I've started this new test. Now, every test has a status to it. So this one is new, and you see it's that we have multiple statuses: new, ready for testing, in process, ready for review. Now this could be that maybe the head of your laboratory sets up a test and assigns it to some technician to actually perform the test. So this what these would apply for or apply to. Or in process means I've started doing the test. And then once you have completed the test, it's either certified with waiver, or certified final, or rejected, or you close out the test. So I'm just going to leave it as new test to begin with here. I would specify the lot number. So I'm just going to use this same lot number that already exists. So I'm kind of testing that again. We'll test 2 of them. And notice the quantity at test time is 100. So that means it goes out and does a quick inventory quantity on hand check to see how many we had available to be tested. If I wanted to test all 100, you don't have to test. You could do I guess I'd call it a sample of the test. Okay, so the next step is now, and by the way, you can tell I've got this on large mode, so it's easier for you at your desk to see what's going on, but you would probably have this in a fairly high resolution screen so that you could you don't have to scroll around so much is what I'm doing here. Okay, so the test that I need to perform is clarity, hardness, speed. Let's see if there's anything else. Speed, that's it. Oh, and length, density, appearance. Oh, so there's several things that need to be tested here. Okay, and these are the conditions. These are either the machines or the methods that you do it. If it is a customer test, it would light that up here. And if it was an outside processing rather than doing it yourself, that would also show. And then this is important here, these are the limits, the lower and upper limits for each of the tests that we're performing. And here's where we enter the actual results. Now on a list type test, the results go into this column. So we got two columns. So let's say we've got a slight bend to this item. Now that's not a problem with conformity. That is showing here only if it was bent would that indicate that this is you can see it right here, a non-conformance issue. But a slight bend, we're gonna say no problem there. For the actual measurement on density, I'm going to put in, let's say I've done a test and I'm the tester now, and I put in 25. So I put in 25.5. Okay, so I put in the test results because this is a numeric type test. Same for length. Length needs to be between 6 and 6.5. Let's put in something outside of the range. I want you to see what happens if it doesn't meet conformance. So let's say we measure and it comes in at 6.75. Problem, right? So when I hit enter, I get a message that pops up on the screen and says, did you miskey this, or is this really what you meant? Because the actual measure of 6.75 is in non-conformance. In other words, did you make a mistake when you entered this, or is this correct? Well, I'm going to say it's correct. I'm going to point out a couple things here. I get a check mark here, which indicates that it's non-conforming. It turns to red. This turns to red. And I get a big warning up here, non-conformance on this test, because this is a problem. So we want the software to alert us that either I miskeyed this number, or in fact it's a correct number and it is a non-conformance issue which needs to be tended to. Okay, so you just basically, and so what the tester is doing, is moving down through the line items and kind of recording the test results. They just type them in. I mean, there's nothing magical to this. Speed, and notice on speed, there was no nothing. There was no upper and lower limit. So I'm going to see what happens here. If I put 12, so it takes it, no problem. Okay, so that means it's kind of just record the results, and there is no issue one way or the other. We just want to document the results of that test. Now, the question is, and this is kind of an internal question, is if this item, these two that I'm testing, that are in the QC location, okay, because we would assign this, where's my location codes? May not have that column showing, so we may want to choose a column and bring in location. So maybe location's in the header. I don't see it. Probably have to go to the designer and bring in location code up here. But either way, you've got to decide whether you're going to take it out of the QC location and put it into available inventory. Remember, that's with this transfer option. Or if you made a mistake, you can always come back to the entry and say, oh, I really typed that wrong. It's really just 6. And then that fixes everything. So no more problems. Okay, so that means, but notice too, if I went to try and print the C of A right now, I can't do it. It's grayed out. So I need to establish that it is basically I've completed the test, or I could say it's ready for somebody else to review it. I'll say yes to that. And it's still not available to print, only until it has reached certified level that I now can actually print the C of A document as you saw earlier. Okay, so this is for the quality control manager to sign off on. Okay, so let's go back to our sequence. So, and I know I took a little bit of extra time there performing that test, but I wanted you to get a sense for what the person that's actually doing the testing goes through. They have to put in very detailed results of a test. That's the purpose of the whole thing. So number 4, we kind of did this, didn't we? You print the certificate of analysis from the test page, and there's also a place to print it from the posted shipment documents. We thought it'd be helpful to have it there. And the last thing I want to show you is a little bit on charting, because a lot of our customers have mentioned to us that it would be very handy to be able to generate some charts of the information that they're collecting. So you're collecting all this data in here, all these actual measurements, and wouldn't it make sense to be able to generate some kind of statistical analysis, or certainly some reporting on those test results? So what we did, I had to scratch my head a little bit as far as to figure out how to do this, but you'll get the idea here. In fact, let me come back to this one. So on a given test, I'll try to explain this the best I can. You have a header and you've got lines. These are two separate in NAV. These are two separate tables, the header table and the line item table. It's the line item table that is holding all of these test results, actual measurements, things like this 25.5. So it's holding those actual results from all these different tests that have been performed. So in this kind of a subtable, I guess, but it's a table. It's our quality control test lines. It's the lines. So if I go and open up a window that just looks at those test lines, that's this choice here. This quality test line shows every line of every test that's ever been performed. This would be huge. So I've got every line, and I've got all the test results. Some of them, some of the entries are there. There we go. So there's a lot of the data is in these test results. And so now if I could generate some reporting, either hard copy report or a chart off of this information, I think it would be really helpful information. So one of the first things that I'm going to point out here is that anytime in NAV, a couple things. Anytime in NAV, let me start here. Let me start in NAV, you can always show a list, because that's what this is. This is a list. You can show it as a chart. And I don't know if you're familiar with this concept, but you pick show as chart, and at first, nothing comes up. The first time I did this, it's like, wait a minute, show as list, this is fine. But when I go show as chart, there's nothing there. And it's like, oh man, I really want that to be a chart. Well, you have to define the chart. They leave it to you to define the chart. And typically you're defining the X and Y axis. I used to teach geometry, so I love this. So you've got the X, I start with the X axis. So down here, select a dimension. So let's say we want to show down at the bottom the test number. So we'll come down here and we'll pick test number. That's our across our x-axis. And then let's show the actual measure that the result. So here's every single chart, every single test. These are all the different tests and the summation of all those. Well, now, is that really that useful? What you might want to do is further refine this thing. And you could do that by actually saying, well, let me see this by the method. And so now let's take it down to density. So I type in density, and maybe it's not method, quality measure. I'm sorry, quality measure. Density, test number, DNSITY. Did I misspell that? What's going on here? Okay, let's get rid of that. Oh. Okay, so quality measure. Let's do this. We'll do it just slightly different. I'm going to come in here and filter this first. So I'm going to come in on my list and say I want to see the results of all my quality measures that are density tests. So I type in density. There we go. So now I've got my list down to just densities, but I still have the various test results. Okay, here's all the actual test results. So now let's show this as a chart. So now I'm seeing just the densities, and I'm looking for trends. So I'm looking, I expect density to always be between a reasonable number. And so now I can see, well, I had a spike in my density. This was up at 38. The rest of them are pretty much between 20, between 18 and 25. Somewhere in there. That looks pretty reasonable. It looks like this one and this one kind of had a spike on these two tests. And so I can go back and review that test information. That would be very hard to spot these two kind of out of character tests if you couldn't quickly chart your information and see that trend, and now you can go back and review specifically test number 7 and test number 12 and see maybe maybe it was the tester, or maybe it was the day, maybe it was something, there were some comments left in the test that would help you define why there's a variance there. Okay, so that's one way to look at it. Another, and that's by test number. So let's take that off and let's do it by, I'm going to do it by quality measure. So let's put the quality measure down across the bottom. Where's quality measure? Here. Okay. In this case, well, it's all density. Let's clear that. So now I'm looking for my graph of all the different measures that I'm testing and the actual results. I want to be sure that I'm not accumulating. You can customize these charts, by the way. You can just pick a customized. It's a sum. You may want it to say none, and let's see what that looks like. So there it gives you more kind of what the readings are. You could also do, these customizations are pretty cool because you can come in and say, okay, I really want to do that as a line chart, and you just say okay, and then it generates it this way. So think in terms of providing, and think in terms of providing this to your customer. When you perform a given test, you could filter this down to one specific test and show them graphically the test results. So there's lots of ways that you can use this concept of showing as a chart versus showing as a list. Okay, that's not specific. I'm not going to take credit for that. That's not specific to quality control. That's anywhere. So any list, so inventory item list, sales history list, any place you have a list, you want to show it as a chart, guess what? Just click this button here and it shows it as a chart. Or if you want to group you can just click quality measure, and now all of your appearance items are together, all of your clarities are together. So I basically sorted my list by this criteria or by method. So if I want to sort it by specific methods, I can do it that way, or by test number. So now I've got it chronologically by test number sequence, just by clicking the column heading. Okay, really applies here very nicely for quality control, but again, that is a standard NAV functionality. That's not necessary. I just use that in quality control because it's so helpful here and in many other places within NAV software. Okay, let's go back to our study guide. And okay, so before we go further, I guess I'd like a little feedback from, we've got 13 of you on the call. I appreciate you taking a little time with me. Hopefully this is helpful for you. I'd like to do one more quick poll. Based on what you have seen so far, do you feel quality control should be added to your NAV installation? Would this make sense for you to have this installed at your location? And you can just type in yes, no, maybe. Looks good, but got to check. Alan says already use it. Well, great, Alan. I didn't know that. Thank you very much. Appreciate your being here. Maybe you've picked up a few new items. Jerry says maybe. Okay, good. Okay, Jackie says possible for future. Christine says yes. Alex says maybe. Christine, if it's a yes, then I'll explain in a minute how to get this thing installed. Okay, appreciate the feedback, guys. Want to make sure you know I've got just two very simple questions up here. One is how to order this product. So it is quality control. It's available through most NAV resellers. So if you just contact your local NAV reseller and say, I was on a webinar with cost control software, do mention cost control software, they may not know, or just say Rick, and then they will put you in touch with us and we will help you get that done. So, and as far as the pricing, I went ahead and put this in your study guide. You might as well know the cost. It's $16.50. There is maintenance that you'll need to buy, some installation, and this video training will be available to anyone that purchases the software as well. Jackie says, are we able to get the recording? Great question. So as I said at the beginning, I would announce at the end of the webinar today how you get the recording. So thank you for asking. Yes, you can get the recording, and the way you do that is you simply ask. Jackie has already asked, so Jackie, I will definitely send this to you. So if you are interested in this recording, just send me an email or put in the comment box here that you would like a copy of the replay, and we will send you a link to this nice little recording, about an hour video. If you have more questions, now is the time. We're going to open this up for Q&A. My name again is Rick Baxter with Cost Control Software. I'm in Carmel, Indiana, just north of Indianapolis. I am going to stop the recording. So those of you on the replay, thank you very much for watching.